Brilliant.
Just give it a little bit. It's going live.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, we're live.
Brilliant.
Oh wait, why can I? Okay, let me just close this down. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another video. And in today's video, I'm going to be interviewing Daniel Carter. If you don't know who he is, he's an SEO consultant based out of the UK. He's a director at Assertive, and he has over 21 years of experience within the SEO industry. I really started following this guy because of the way that he exposes people in the industry. I really love just his content and what he talks about on his LinkedIn profile. And I'm going to say right now, if you don't know his LinkedIn profile, I'm going to leave a link to it in the description when we're done with this video. But you should definitely check him out because he says a lot of stuff that's really, really good and really insightful. As we were speaking, before I even went live, he was telling me something in regards to some of his problems that he's been facing in the industry, and we're going to let him get into that. But first, I want to give him the chance to do a quick little intro for those who might not know him. So Daniel, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi. So I'm infamous in the SEO industry. I'm sort of hidden away in the depths of LinkedIn and Twitter and whatnot. I've been doing SEO, since 1999. I started off doing SEO for, Lycos, Hotbot, Alta Vista, FreeServe. This was back, when there was 50 different search engines, and SEO was create, a web page and stuff your keyword into a doorway page 50 times, and that was it. You would rank. I've evolved over the last sort of 20 years. I started out as a web designer in 1998, which is how I got into SEO in the late 90s, early 2000s. And, it was something that initially, when I started out doing it, it was for fun. I was trying to sell stuff on the web as a kid. So, I sort of tried to get into SEO as early as I could. And then obviously through the early 2000s, as Google boomed, I went through the whole plethora of working for some of the biggest agencies in the world, including like iProspect and Big Mouth Media and whatnot. And then in 2007, I thought, well, an agency was charging £200 an hour for me. And this is back in 2007. Why don't I just go off and do my own thing? So I set up an agency called Assertive and basically started to learn in the real world that the SEO industry is not what people think it is. And the route to becoming an SEO isn't what people think it is. And the talent pool for SEO at the minute, even in 2020, is very empty. So we're in a COVID era now. High streets are dying. Doesn't matter whether you're in America, South America, China, Russia, the UK. It doesn't matter where you are. People are massively adopting e-commerce. COVID's changing our behavior. So now the industry has created a massive demand for SEO. And it's also become something that has driven some infuriation from my end, because obviously I've been in the industry for a long time. I've seen the pool filling up, and now there's a real problem in the SEO industry because there isn't regulation, there isn't a standard learning model for people. So I've obviously turned to LinkedIn to vent. It's not all negative. I think people want to get into SEO, need some guidance and somewhere, where to start. As you probably see, I have some opinions on that as well.
Yeah, for sure. So there's really good nuggets in there. And before we even started recording, we were talking about Daniel had made this post on LinkedIn, and he was saying that he was talking to an SEO one day, and he was asking them how do they deal with keyword cannibalization, and they were telling him that they would de-optimize the page and like remove the keywords or something of that nature. And so we were getting into that. And, you don't have to obviously say who it is or what the person was or whatever, but maybe you could get into that, talk about that story and just some of the other things that you've seen in the industry when you're interviewing or you're talking to other SEO freelancers and stuff of that nature.
So I think the thing is, from my point of view, is that if I sort of give a top level overview of SEO, SEO is such a difficult skill set because of a number of reasons. So the first thing is that there are lots of people out there that want to become an SEO. They want to get into digital marketing. There's no standard learning model for people that want to become an SEO. People learn in all different ways. Some people set up their own site. Some people will watch Neil Patel video or Brian Dean video. Some people will use the Moz SEO guides. There's no standard learning model. So everyone has their own preconception of what SEO is. And when people come to trying to implement it, there isn't any educational foundation. It's not like, you know, you want to be a heart surgeon. So you go to college, you study for 3 years, then you go on to university, study for 10 years, then you go through a doctorate and all these different things. SEO is you go out, you learn it, and then hopefully you get good enough at doing it by doing it.
Yep.
So, so one of the key issues that I've primarily faced is that I've tried to recruit for the agency senior SEOs. So I tell you why I've had such a struggle. I've had people come to me, 10 years experience, 15 years experience. They've got a great looking CV. They come in for an interview with me. And then I say to them, okay, so I'm going to give you a scenario. Let's say you're a holiday cottage company or a travel company. Okay. You've got 10 pages of search results. Okay. And you've got pagination, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What do you do with paginated results? So if someone who's got 10 or 15 years experience says to me, put a link rel prev or next tag. And I'm like, but Google, they're deprecated tags. Google doesn't use them anymore. And it's like, hold on a second. You've come here with 10, 15 years experience and you can't even deal with a basic pagination situation. And I've had senior SEOs that, don't even use Search Console properly. They don't know how to deal with keyword cannibalization or canonicalization. Some SEOs that I've interviewed, and I've said to them, okay, when we talk about SEO, what do you think is important to Google? And I get the usual stuff. I get links, I get content. And I'm like, okay, what about end user behavior?
What
about people who are actually searching for? These are people that want, 60, 70,000 pounds a year or 100,000 US dollars. Okay. And, I'm supposed to put these guys onto some fairly corporate accounts. And, I'm not unfair, right? Because I know if you come into an interview, sometimes people freeze up but I get people to do like a mini audit, and I purposely put stuff there that I expect them to see. I had the best one was I had an SEO who had 18 years experience. Okay. And he wanted £90,000 GBP. So what would that be? $110,000, something like that.
Yeah.
And I asked him to audit a site because I own a load of little mini sites, and he didn't even notice that the whole site was blocked from Google with a robots disallow / So the whole site was blocked from Google, and he didn't even realize.
That's crazy.
So
that's crazy, man. That's crazy. It's funny that you say that because that's something that I always preach on my channel as well. Like whenever I even teach SEO or I'm telling people about SEO, I always tell them about the end user. It's really important to have the end user in mind. And when people don't think like that, I don't even understand. Like to me, it's just like, it just leaves me. What people don't realize is at the end of the day, users dictate the algorithm, right? It's not the other way around. Like the reason why the algorithms are the way that they are is because Google is trying to always appeal to the user, like you said. And if you are just thinking about links, like one of the questions that I like to ask other SEOs is I'm like, okay, or, just links and content. What about site speed? Or what about just overall structure of the website and navigating the website, right? But like one of the questions I like to ask is, and I promise you, if you ask this, I don't know if you've ever done this before, but if you ask this to someone, it'll freeze them up. I just like to ask, and I ask this to SEOs, how does links help? Like, how does link building help people?
Well,
Right?
it's a good question. When Tim Berners-Lee created the internet, long before search engines, you could only find something through a URL that you knew existed. So before the internet had an index, you could only access stuff directly because there was no search engine. So Google relies on the fundamental principle that content is only accessible if it's linked to. So every piece of content on the internet, and we're excluding the dark web here because that obviously is a different thing. If it's not accessible because it's orphaned, then technically it can never be a part of an index. So links are an archaic way of ranking a site. So the whole link building aspect of algorithm weight has been carried forward, for so long. So many other ranking factors have come and gone, but links have just been this perpetual requirement, and they still are. But it's because Google doesn't want to devalue links because it actively wants to build an index. So it's not gonna devalue that. So content needs to be accessible. Now, there's another critical thing here. Google is smarter than people give it credit for, and it's also dumber than people think it is. It's dumber when it comes to links because fundamentally black hat SEO has existed for a long time, and it will do for a long time because people can create artificial sites, they can inflate metrics, they can hide PBNs, they can do all of this stuff. And people still win by gaming Google. I'm not going to name any companies, but if you Google SEO agency in the UK, there's a few new agencies on page one that I know are using PBNs, and they've hidden it from Ahrefs. And for a lot of the clients that I do work with, I see now and again these sites that just shouldn't rank, and they've got nothing in their link profile. So I know that they're probably PBN derived. These tactics remain. So when we talk about links, it's very subjective. If I could actually talk about one aspect of SEO that is probably the most overlooked part of SEO in its totality, and that's Google naturally promotes mixed results. What I mean by that is when we talk about Google and an algorithm, people say, links, content, good site structure, page speed, schema, all of this stuff. Google naturally promotes sites that have all different benefits in different areas. So for example, if you want to rank number one for New York accountant, you don't emulate what number one is doing. And when you look at number two, number three, number four, they'll all have different characteristics. They'll have different link profiles, different anchor text profiles, different on-site profiles, different content, different social constructs. So when people talk about SEO, what they don't realize is that Google promotes result diversity so that RankBrain can look at how people's behavior shapes search results. And I talk to SEOs of 10, 15 years experience. They never talk about this stuff to me. They don't say about how results change dynamically for people. And, these things drive me batshit crazy because we are specialists and we're here to educate and we're here to provide services for clients. But I would say 9 out of 10 SEO consultants and 9 out of 10 agencies aren't up to scratch when it comes to the resource that they're putting forward towards clients.
I agree. And so another thing too is, so what is your opinion on, because talking about clients and agencies and such, do you when you're working with your clients, right? Do you do it on like how are you like managing your clients? Like, are you guys doing like deliverable things, packages, or do you guys do it on a timely basis, or are you tracking hours? Like, what does that look like for you?
So it's actually really mixed. The one thing that I've always tried to avoid was package SEO because it always brought a cheapness to what SEO is. Like, how can you package?
You can't.
3 links a month and 2 articles a month, when the content and link requirements for a client are always going to be changing.
Yep.
But then equally, it will depend on the kind of client that you get, because some clients say, well, I'm going to pay you $1,000 a month. What do I get? So it's a knee-jerk reaction for a consultant or a client to say, well, we'll give you 5 articles a month and 10 links. So the client exchanges the money and they get something in return. And I think that is fundamentally one of the biggest pitfalls in SEO. People feel like they have to earn their money by giving a deliverable, when in reality, SEO is more about the methodology. It's about, okay, I've got a 20-page website here. I'm going to change these title tags. I'm going to move the header. I'm going to change the orientation of content. I'm going to tweak. It's about testing, reviewing what you've done. That isn't a deliverable. That's not something that you can package. Nope. And the intrinsic problem with SEO nowadays is that there's a drive for cheap SEO, quick automation, bang out deliverables, and that keeps clients happy. And that's not what SEO is. SEO is a very specialist skill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100% agree. That's something I say all the time. That's why I don't like really doing like deliverable packages. I rather work off of hours, because like you said, things can change. Like when you're auditing a website, two websites, even if they're in the same industry, no 2 websites are going to be the same. There's always going to be something wrong, something that you got to fix. And then there might be some rabbit holes, when you're looking at certain things. So a lot of the times it's just hard to say, hey, I'll give you 3 pages for 3 pages of optimization, when in reality, you don't even know if that's what they actually need. Like first you need to assess what's going on with the website first, and then you could dictate how you're going to work on the website. So I 100% agree.
I think it's the thing is that, when we talk about SEO, the reason that it's such a prosperous niche, but such a difficult niche to work in, is because it's not a service with consistency. It's not like pay-per-click, where you spend money with Google, you've got control over the keywords that you show ads for, you optimize landing page, and ultimately your goal is conversions. SEO is such a different ballgame. SEO is countless different things on an algorithm that is entirely shaped by the search term that you're focusing on. And this is another important thing that I try and explain to people. When I say to people, tell me about what you know about Google and its algorithm, and they say, well, Google's algorithm is looking for ABC. And I say, you do realize there isn't actually an algorithm. It's thousands of different factors that at keyword level are weighted in different proportions. So if you type cheap shoes into Google, the ranking factors for that are going to be different to, cheap Adidas shoes.
Yep.
Every keyword has its own weighted metrics, and then the SERPs are then mixed up with diverse results. So what I've known with all the testing that I've done over the years is that Google will purposely return a mixed bag of results. So it will return some sites that are lower quality. It will return some sites that aren't a perfect match. And what it will do in real time using RankBrain is it will look at bounce rates, pogo rates. It will look at user interaction. It will look at transactional elements, and it will purposely mix results up depending on what device you're on, time of day, location. And what happens is that between core updates, Google gets all of this data, and then they use that to do like major SERP shifts. And I think the stuff that I'm talking about now isn't stuff that people can learn from Neil Patel or a Moz Guide or even a SEMrush Academy. These are things that people have to test.
And that's I tell everyone that too. Like in SEO, you have to test it. Like honestly, really, if you're not testing it, how are you gonna know what's actually working? Like anybody can go tell you, oh, throw some keywords on the page and you'll rank for this term, but nothing is really definitive. You have to really sit down and do single variable testing, or you can do, there's so many ways you can do different types of tests, but it's really important to test. I stress that a lot as well. You know, it's funny that you mentioned PPC. I guess one of my questions is, do you do any PPC? Have you done any PPC for, you know, for clients or anything of that nature?
Yeah, so I got caught up in PPC inadvertently. So, 2007, 8, 9, my SEO career had sort of developed somewhat, and I'd already been using Google Ads for the keyword research data back in the day.
Yep.
And, I had a few clients saying, could you look at doing a PPC campaign? So it was really a case of just going into it, fumbling, making countless mistakes, losing budget, losing clients, before finally, really grasping the Google Ads platform. Now I've been doing Google Ads for 13 years. I know the platform inside out. And, I run PPC campaigns for some of my SEO clients. But I think fundamentally, I've got a problem with PPC, not because it works, but because it fundamentally is the model that Google's moving towards. Obviously, they want to make more and more money. So how do they keep more people engaged on the PPC front? Well, they muddy the search results with PPC, Google shopping results. They jam as much in above organic fold as possible, pushing organic fold out the way. And then the sinister introduction of rich snippets is sinister because it's driven a load of zero-click searches. The more Google stops people going into people's websites, the more likely these people are to interact with a paid result.
True. Yeah.
And I've got a problem with that.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great point, actually, that I didn't think about. That's a great point. So that being said, what do you think is the future of SEO in your opinion? Based off, you have 21 years in, you've seen every change, you've seen everything. What do you think is the future?
So I think the future of SEO is not what a lot of people say it is. I made a funny image about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I put it on LinkedIn, and what it was is it was I think it was like 8 paid ads, then it was a shopping ad, then it was loads of rich snippets, then it was 2 Amazon organic listings, and then more paid ads. And I did that as like a mock-up, as a joke. But in reality, SEO will never die. So there's loads of people say, Google kill it off. Google can't kill it off because it fundamentally is what made Google what it is. So they're not gonna cull off SEO. What they are going to do is they're going to change the way that people interact with search. And they've been doing that for years and years and years. So, first it started off with the fact that Google Ads used to be two ads, 3 ads now and again above the fold. Then they had all the right-hand side ads and then the lower fold ads. They culled off the right-hand ads, introduced knowledge panel. Then they increased above the fold. And I think what they're going to eventually move towards is more dynamic interactive search. So there will be deterioration in organic clicks, but there'll be different ways of people earning traffic. So voice search will continue to grow because, even I, in my last 4 years, have been using OK Google a lot more, than what I used to. And I think more people are going to earn opportunities through that. I think long tail is going to be a better option for a lot of people. And I think that Google is going to keep adapting rich snippets to fit each specific niche. So I think that's going to be the next 5 years. In the future, who knows what they'll introduce, but the next 5 years are definitely going to be more transition towards structured data. And there's definitely going to be evolution in voice search. So people are going to have to be prepared. We even know that Google now are going to do real-time booking, real-time shopping using voice search and Google My Business integration.
Right. Yeah. It's, SEO is, it's always changing. It's always like, that's the thing that I love about it though, right? Because it's never really the same. It's like, it's like you said, you've interviewed people or you've spoken to people with like 20 years, 18 years of experience, but it doesn't matter. If you don't stay up to date, if you don't have that grind, if you don't want to hustle and really, you know, keep yourself educated around the topic, 18 years could be nothing. You know, you could have 18 years of bad experience. And that's why I always tell people it's really about your work ethic and how you do stuff.
If I could give anyone, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if I could give anyone advice when it comes to SEO, it would be stop trying to learn the skill and instead learn the methodology. Yep. So when you look at a web page and you're an SEO, you know, stop thinking about the traditional elements of SEO, like should I have my keyword in my title tag and my header tag and my H2 tag, and should I mention my keyword 15 times and shove it in an alt tag? Stop that lateral thinking and start thinking, right, I'm selling this service or this product. So what realistically is my client, what's my target audience going to expect to see? So create the content that fits what they're searching for, support it with quality factors, and then test. Learn how to test, learn how to make a change, and then monitor your average position in Search Console, and to keep track of the changes that you make, the impact that that has, and then to follow, you know, a regime. And by all means, you know, integrate ERPs, easily repeatable processes, and feel free to automate some parts of it. But realistically, learning the ability to understand SEO logic and then to bring the testing methodology to the table is more valuable than trying to repeat, you know, old school processes that Google's going to move away from. And we even see it. You know, I've seen loads of SEO experiments that I've run where I've taken keywords out of title tags. I've even tested things that went against what Google said to see whether they work or not. So I've got a fantastic example right now, right this second, that you and anyone else can do. Obviously, I think if you're in the US, it might be hit and miss whether you get it. You go to google.co.uk and search for VAT calculator, VAT calculator. There's a website called www.vatcalculator.co.uk. Now, the reason I use this as an example is it's not secure. It's not mobile friendly. It's had no SEO. It's an exact match domain, and it's crummy in pretty much every way, shape, or form. And yet there's one thing that keeps that ranking #1 in the UK. If you get that, are you getting that? vatcalculator.co.uk.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. And I use this when I do talks. And I say to people, why do you think that stayed at #1, even though it violates loads of basic SEO principles? What's the one thing that people land on that website? What do they not do once they've landed on that website and used the calculator? They don't go back to Google. That's the end of the session. So what does that say to Google? It says to Google, well, all these people click on the first result. They don't leave and go back to search. So Google sees this constant high exit rate. Okay. It's got a high bounce rate. Everyone exits after they've used the calculator. So this is an example of non-SEO compliance still working in 2020. And, you know, there's other examples. I'll give you another one. Years ago in 2013, before Matt Cutts did a disappearing act from Google, Matt Cutts said clearly, bad quality links will get you hit by Google, Panda, Penguin. You'll get a penalty, and these poor quality links don't work anymore. So do you know what I did? I took a domain. It was a teaching abroad domain, and I ranked it #1 in Google for teaching abroad. And there was no English content on the domain. It was lorem ipsum dolot. You know that lorem ipsum text?
It's crazy that you brought that up.
I got it to #1 for teaching abroad on an exact match domain with just spammy links. I took a snapshot of it and then I sent it to him on Twitter. And I said, poor quality links don't work anymore, no. And that site ranked for another 2 years at #1 with no English content.
Wow.
So
I saw something like that. This guy named, do you know who Kyle Roof is?
I've heard of the name.
Okay, he created this tool called Page Optimizer Pro. I believe.
Yeah.
I believe he's the one who created that tool. And he ranks for like some super competitive term using all lorem ipsum text, and like Google deranked him or delisted him or something like that. But it was like super crazy because all he did was like, he had his keyword in the page and he did like a bunch of other things. But that's funny. That's funny that you did that as well, and funny to see that. I have a question. Go ahead.
Go on, far away.
No, I was gonna say I have a question in the chat that I wanted to ask you. Cynthia says, how does PPC and SEO work together in your opinion?
Okay, so this is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
They don't work together. There's a very good reason for that. Google recently changed. They made a massive change that upset a lot of people. Like there was uproar, not enough uproar. Google Ads now hides true keyword data if it's low, if they consider it low value or low impression keywords. They now hide this, so you can't see what you're paying for. Now, there was this common misconception that SEO and PPC had some sort of affinity. What I mean by that is people thought, well, I want to improve my rankings. If I spend money with Google, there'll be some sort of favorability there. No, there isn't. There's none. Whether you run PPC or not makes no difference. The data exchange is beneficial. So obviously, if you run PPC and you get your conversions from your keywords, then you know what to focus or incorporate into your SEO strategy. Mm-hmm. There's only one small part of PPC that you can use for SEO, and that's landing page quality scores. So whilst there isn't anything confirmed, and Google will never confirm anything, the model that they use to say, here's the keyword that you're targeting. So let's say you're a cheap shoe website. You sell thousands of cheap shoes from loads of brands. If you run PPC, you'll get quality scores that talk about landing page experience. Now, they typically look at the relation between the keyword, the landing page, the content, the ads, and the page performance. You can use that model for SEO. So if Google says that you've got poor landing page experience for your target keywords, then you can pretty much guarantee that that will actually have some affinity from an SEO perspective. So you can use that to a degree, but the general consensus is if you build your page for an end user, you can use PPC to get some valuable insights. Now, there's one other really important thing that I have to stress. So let's say you're on page 3 for cheap Nike trainers. Okay, you're on page 3 and you've got www.mytrainersuperstore.com/cheap Nike trainers. So you're running a PPC campaign and you're getting clicks for cheap Nike trainers, cheap Nike trainers online, and you're getting clicks, you're getting conversions, so you know what keywords are working from a PPC perspective. If there's anything valuable that I can tell you is that when we talk about SEO and what you can bring forward, when you are on page 2 or page 3 or page 4, you don't get organic clicks, or you'll get barely any organic clicks for the stuff that you want to rank for. So how can Google rank you if you've got no traffic? How can it evaluate user behavior? Well, it can't. So if you're running PPC and you've got this flow of traffic going to your landing page through PPC, use that data for your SEO strategy. What I mean by that is if people are coming on through PPC and loads of people are abandoning, they're not buying your products, that data will show that you can't rank for it organically. Because if Google puts you on page 1 organically, if your paid isn't working, your organic isn't going to work. So if you use paid and you start saying, okay, well, loads of people aren't buying, people are only spending 30 seconds on the page and bouncing. If you use PPC and you run landing page experiments, use Google Optimize, Visual Web Optimizer, or any number of optimization testing tools, A/B testing tools. If you improve your landing page engagement, you get more conversions and you improve your landing page experience, you'll actually help encourage, to bring your rankings forward, and you'll improve your PPC performance. So use PPC to benchmark improvements for A/B testing for SEO. That's the one bit of advice I would give.
Okay. And I think, so from like a holistic marketing strategy perspective, if you're running, I think this is what she might mean. If you're running paid ads and you're also doing SEO at the same time, not necessarily from like an algorithm perspective, but more so of as a holistic marketing strategy, do you feel like they complement each other? I think that's in terms of helping to build the profit of, like, if you have a client and they say I want SEO and PPC and you're doing both, have you seen your clients be more profitable from doing both or prioritizing one or the other?
It's very, very niche dependent. So you wouldn't generally run PPC for something that wasn't going to net you an ROI. So PPC and SEO complement each other. From an SEO perspective, if your PPC campaign strengthens your brand and is a clear reflector that you can sell a product or a service using PPC, because the more people that see you on paid clicks, more people see your brand, the more likely people are to engage and return or search for you organically on brand, which is beneficial from an SEO perspective. They only complement one another if you've got a good product or a good service. You can run a PPC and SEO strategy together, but if you're selling an inferior product, if you've got an inferior brand, if all the dots don't join, then from a holistic point of view, then no, they won't work together. So another key one is the amount of businesses that I see, they're doing SEO, they're doing PPC, and their competitors have got 500 Trustpilot reviews and the client's got 1 or 5 reviews.
Right.
Or the client's more expensive in every which way, shape and form. These are all things that will impact how viable it is to run an SEO and PPC strategy together. So, and then you've got to factor in the client. So PPC can work for some clients, but it won't work for every client. If the client is impatient, if the client's impatient, if the budgets are tight, if there's too much pressure to deliver in a short time frame with low budget, these things will all dictate whether or not SEO and PPC can holistically work together. So the answer is, if you've got a good client, the client has a good brand, and the products and the service fit well into the marketplace, i.e. they're not ridiculously overpriced, there's good brand trust there, then yes, they'll be holistic.
Makes sense. And agree. So I have another question for someone here. LLD, what's your real name, man? Throw it in the chat. But he says, which cities in the UK has a growing digital marketing job market?
To be honest, a lot of the cities. So I know that's not very specific. You've got Manchester and Leeds, Sheffield, Nottingham. So it's really interesting. The UK has always been massively London focused. When everyone in America, the first place they'll think of if someone mentions the UK is London. It's the same thing. The same as when we're depicted, to have long teeth and drink tea, and we all love the Queen and red phone boxes. But in reality, the UK has suffered a lot over the last 30, 40 years because up north, there wasn't a lot of industry. But with digital, you could be in Sheffield, or you could be in Hawaii, or you could be in Poland, you could be anywhere in the world. So the transformation in the UK is that digital has spread out across the country, and less people care about London now. In fact, people are actually coming away from London, because who wants to pay £25,000 a month for a shoebox office when you can pay £1,000 a month, when you go 50 miles north? So
Right.
in the UK, the digital transformation is spreading out across the country, and very rightly so.
So I know it's a question that a lot of people like to ask me, but I want to hear from like the UK perspective. In your opinion, somebody who is, it's for all the people who's watching that are looking for jobs and stuff of that nature. In your opinion, somebody's looking for a job in digital marketing, right? And there's email marketing, social media, SEO, all this stuff, all this noise within the industry. In your opinion, what do you think is the best job for someone to go into in digital marketing? Why do you think that? And also, in addition to that, what's the third question? All right, I'll let you answer that, and then if it comes back to me.
So this is that's actually a really good question. The role that someone would best fit is very much personality dependent, because I give you an example, right? People that are good at social media marketing will generally have better interpersonal skills, in that they can think of content that's more likely to resonate with people on social media. Maybe people that have got more creativity. So for example, I know a lot of SEOs that cannot communicate. They don't want to talk to clients. They want to run their tools on their computer in their bedroom, and they want to be left alone to do the dirty hands-on stuff in SEO, and they don't want to communicate. So personality is a key indicator. Are you creative? Are you, empowered? Are you passionate? And are you analytical? So if you're analytical, but you haven't got such good interpersonal skills, then, working in SEO is probably going to be, your best opportunity. If you want to go into PPC, then you need a combination of analytical skills and the ability to communicate, because for a lot of clients, when they're spending money on PPC, they want regular communication. So your personality will dictate it, and your ability to test, to analyze data, your ability to read and write, these will all shape what fits. If I could say an industry that offers the most growth, I would say SEO, despite what's happening with the pay-per-click front, and despite the fact that social media marketing is absolutely huge, and despite the fact that email marketing has been around for longer than a lot of other social channels and digital marketing channels. I would say the reason is that PPC has gotten progressively more expensive. I see more businesses now realizing that it's not as sustainable for them, so they want an SEO strategy. A lot of businesses don't understand PPC, and they don't like the concept of paying per click. So I think SEO offers probably the greatest opportunities in terms of, people that want to come into digital marketing. But I think if you're really, empowered by social media, and you're really creative, then, more people should maybe focus on that, as opposed to SEO, which can be quite lonesome in some aspects.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I agree. I know the question that everyone's gonna want to know: which position gets paid the most? But I think that really depends on the company that you work at, right? Because I've seen like
the pay scale, scales are unfathomable in their difference. So you can get SEO in India or the Philippines or other, should we say, developing countries. You can get SEO for $100 a month, $200 a month. Obviously, what will come out of that. But then if you go for an SEO role in London as a junior SEO, you can expect to earn 20 to 25,000 a year. Going at a more senior role,
25,000 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
A more senior role on average will net between 30 to 50,000 a year. senior SEO role with management experience and hands-on agency experience, 70K a year isn't uncommon. Consultants vary wildly in the UK. The average hourly rate, I'd say at the moment, is around 50 to 75 pounds an hour. So the average day rate for a consultant will be around 350 to 500 pounds a day. Mm-hmm. Again, I think realistically, it's hard to say where people will earn more money. I've seen paid roles go for 60, 70, 80,000 a year. I think the average higher bracket earnings are ever so slightly high in the SEO industry. Mm-hmm. But equally, as the years have progressed and the demand has increased, the saturation of cheap SEOs flooding the marketplace has made it harder for businesses to justify their costs. Mm-hmm. You can expect to earn on average, when you've developed 5+ years, you could expect $50,000 or $40,000 a year onwards, at that scale. It takes progressively longer after 5 years, depending on how experienced you are. You need to start breaking the barriers of 10 to 15 years to start commanding salaries of 80 to 100K a year. And I know people on 80 to 100K a year that do SEO. They're generally in large organizations managing, a smaller team of SEOs below them, but they still deal with the top level SEO. But you could say that the average will be, once you've got good experience, up to 100,000 a year or $100,000 a year. That wouldn't be uncommon or unexpected.
And Cynthia says, what do you look for in general? I think we covered this earlier, but if you want to give like a quick, answer. Cynthia says, what do you look for when you're hiring SEOs or digital marketers in general?
Personality. There's a very good reason for that. I've worked with some exceptionally good SEOs over the years. God, it was hard to find them. I would interview 100 people and find 2 that were good. That. Maybe I was being picky because I didn't want my clients to get substandard SEO.
Yeah.
But personality makes a massive difference. And you'd say, well, how can you use personality? You need someone with skill. If people have got a good drive and are enthusiastic, want to learn, are willing to put in the extra time, they are the people that will become better SEOs. Because some of the worst SEOs that I've ever worked with were people that turned up for an interview, preached like they knew it all, and weren't open to debate. It was, you need to do this, you need to do that. No, comprehension of logic, no testing methodology. They're the kind of people that won't last in the SEO industry. Mm-hmm. No, personality, obviously, you need some SEO experience, but it's how you present yourself to a potential employer. If you turn up and say, I've been learning SEO independently for a few years, I've got my own websites, I've been testing, if people can see that you've even gone through their own, hassle of creating your own site and testing what works and what doesn't work, that's more attractive than someone that's been in 10 SEO agencies over 5 years, because then you could see that they're not committed. They'll probably jump to another SEO agency in 6 months. So if you can show heart, dedication, resourcefulness, good personality, willingness to learn, and you can bring some SEO methodologies to the table, they're the kind of things that I think not just me, but a lot of business owners and SEO agency owners are going to be looking for. So
that's great. No, it's fine. It's fine.
It's like 6 o'clock here. I feel really bad because I just shut her out the door.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm gonna So I had another question before we wrap up. So you have your own agency. Obviously, you've gotten clients, right?
Yeah.
What would be one tip if you had to give somebody who was trying to get clients and trying to position themselves to start attracting people? What's that one tip you would give them, that one golden nugget to start getting clients?
There are probably 5 number 1 tips I would give, because
all right,
The
Give us the
heartache,
five.
the heartache. So I will tell you now, SEO, as amazing as it is, as fun and insightful, and I mean, SEO is brilliant. Like the testing and the excitement when you wake up in the morning, Google's done a core update, all your rankings at #1, the client's ringing you up. This is amazing. You know, send us an invoice. We want to increase our budget. That's SEO. But SEO is also some things that people need a reality check for. #1, it will shorten your lifespan. No ifs, no buts. If you go into SEO, you will suffer stress. There is a lot of stress. You don't control Google. Google can do an update, wipe out rankings overnight. And believe you me, even if you've done everything right, you can lose positions. Clients go berserk. Very stressful. #2, don't undersell yourself. If you're in the SEO industry and you know you need new business, you need new clients, and someone starts quibbling with what you've proposed as a budget, do not go down the route of cheapening what you offer. Stay away from those kind of clients, because what happens is that you come down on price. These are generally the same clients that will expect more than you can possibly deliver within a budget. Do not entertain clients that are willing to haggle, try and haggle you down on budget, because if you are good at what you do and you need the budget for the content, for the links, for the testing, you can't compromise. If you don't get the client, let someone else suffer the headache. And generally, and you know, I don't like to make blanket statements because this isn't for everyone, but the general consensus is, if you're selling your services, okay, someone tries to haggle on your price, very, very likely that these same people will be the ones that don't pay your invoices after 30 days. You chase and chase and chase. You end up owing money out for whatever resource that you've had to get in. It's not worth the headache. If someone doesn't value your service at what you've pitched it at, move on. That's another thing. So that's absolutely key. The next one is, don't promise clients results. I see it all over the place, everywhere I go. Even I get it now to this day. You know, I ranked #1 in the UK for SEO consultant, and I've ranked for SEO agency, SEO company, so I know all about it. When clients say to you, how long do you think it's going to take? Don't answer it. Just don't. Because the problem is that the second that you give an answer, you set that expectation in stone. And clients, believe you me, they will hold on to every little thing that you say, because once they pay your invoice, you belong to them. And that is when the relationship goes wrong. You don't belong to the client. You're offering a service. You can't control Google. This year, the last time Google did an official update was May, and we're now in November. May. So there are a lot of businesses that could have onboarded a client after the update in May, have done a load of work between then, who are still sat to this day waiting for that update. Now, I know a lot of clients will go, so what can we expect after 3 months? Well, at the rate that Google's going, we're not going to see an update after 6 months of no core update. So the client will go, well, you said we would see an increase, or blah, blah, blah. So don't do it. All you can say is, I've got a track record of getting results. We will work month by month. We will look at the average positions in Search Console, or AccuRank, or SEMrush, or Ahrefs, whatever it is that you use to track rankings, and do it progressively. That's another key thing. Like, just don't overpromise, because Google can do an update. And one other thing that is absolutely critical, right? So whether you're new to the industry, whether you're getting your feet under the table with 2 or 3 years experience, when you inherit a new client, you need to know what previous work has been done. And there's good reason for that. I've inherited clients myself that had a previous agency that was doing Black Hat, using PBNs, private blog networks, for you that aren't familiar with the terminology, Web 2s, spammy ethics. And the clients come to me and I've looked and I've been like, well, you've got all this dodgy work. If Google does an update, you get a penalty, and that happens while you're with me. That's a bad reflection on me, even though this is historic work. So always do your due diligence with a new client. Always find out, what did your last SEO do? And find out. And the last bit of advice, the last bit that I keep with you, if you take on a new client that slags off or badmouths the last agency without good reason and proof, I'm not saying that if an agency did a really bad job, that they don't deserve it, but it can paint a picture of what the client is like. If the client comes to you and is like, yeah, the last SEO consultant or agency was rubbish, they didn't do anything, they were really bad. And if you go and look and actually they were doing links, content, and they were doing the right things, then that actually paints a picture of the client. And you want to be careful of people like that, because they're also more susceptible to not pay your invoices and drop you if you don't get, top 3 within 3 months. So keep that in mind.
Man, that was very insightful. This was a very, very, this is one of my favorite episodes of anybody that I've interviewed. So thanks for being on the show, man. Thanks for coming on the channel. Really appreciate you. Guys, if you want to check out his LinkedIn profile, you can check him out. I'm going to leave it in the description below as soon as I'm done recording this. And definitely message him, ask him any questions that you have. This guy has 20 years of SEO experience. So this was a really, really great, great episode, man. So any closing words?
Well, I think if I had my way, we could make this podcast 6, 8, 10, 12 hours long. It would be good to arrange another one and to discuss some of the intricacies, because there are some tips and some guidance that I like to give. I've been doing SEO a long time. I don't put myself above other people. I know that there are juniors out there. Some of my posts on LinkedIn are a bit controversial. They might appear as if they're aimed at people that don't know what they're doing. They're not. They're more aimed at people that come into the industry, profess to be something that they're not. I'm all for giving people tips and advice, and it's a very good, prosperous industry. I advocate people to come into it, but be prepared. Be prepared to learn, make mistakes. I didn't get where I am by getting things right. I got where I am by getting a lot of things wrong. And that's how I sort of professed my skills. And, I'm happy to always share some guidance, tips and advice. And, I'd love to do another podcast.
Definitely, man. I love it too. Matter of fact, as soon as I end this, we'll talk about that. We'll arrange a time for another one, because this was awesome.
Brilliant.
All right, guys.